Hi, folks, and welcome. It's great to have you here. Rush Limbaugh, the EIB Network, America's anchorman, America's truth detector, and, of course, Doctor of Democracy. Right here from the Limbaugh Institute for Advanced Anti-Leftist Anti-Media Studies. Our telephone number, if you want to be on the program, is 800-282-2882. The email address, lrushbaugh@eibnet.us. Man, I'll tell you, I don't care what's happening in Houston. The Trump hate is ongoing. The anti-Trump thinking, actions, the protests, the apparent desire to rip this country apart and eventually destroy it goes on unabated, as does the meteorological disaster taking place in southeastern Texas. We'll start with the meteorological disaster in southeastern Texas first. We can get through that fairly, well, in a little less time than it'll take to document the Trump hate today and the actions of the worldwide and American left, led by the media, to continue to destroy Trump. It's gotten to the point now that there are major stories in major publications like the Daily Mail criticizing the shoes Melania Trump was wearing today when she boarded Air Force One for the trip down to Texas, that the media is saying that Trump shouldn't be making because it's too soon, and because the media says Trump doesn't have the ability to comfort people anyway, that Trump just repulses people. Trump repels people. Nobody wants to be hugged by Trump like everybody wanted to be hugged by Clinton and Obama. That Trump just can't pull this off. He'd be better off not going to Texas. He'd be better off just quitting and retiring and resigning and building Trump Tower in Moscow like he wanted to do in the first place, and just get out of this and let either Orrin Hatch take over or the Democrats or somebody, but anybody but Trump. I mean, that's pretty much a summary. Melania wore 5-inch stiletto heels under her jeans today as she boarded Air Force One. The drive-bys are saying she can't go walking in the flood with that. That's absolutely obscene. Who does she think she is? Now, does anybody think she's going to be wearing the 5-inch stilettos walking through flood? Does anybody think Melania is going to be walking through flood-ravaged areas of Houston? And interestingly enough, it's the UK Daily Mail, which used to be a reliably responsible place, that's leading the charge against Melania's stilettos today. And it was predictable. You saw that on TV. You just knew. I did anyway, that the media would not be able to ignore it. It looks like that, according to the National Weather Service and Texas state officials, that Hurricane Harvey will set a U.S. record for the most rainfall over a 3-day period and over a 20,000 square mile area. A 20,000 square mile area is about 140 miles by 140 miles. There are a couple of reservoirs in Houston, earthen dams and so forth, that have, I don't think they've been eclipsed. And they are in danger now of overflowing, and it is said that if that happens, that we may not know how to describe the destruction that will then happen. With those floodwaters released, those reservoir waters released on top of the flooding caused by the rain, and all of this drainage, it's amazing. If you look at a drainage map, river drainage map of Texas, southeastern Texas, you'll find that the drainage is all aiming at Houston, in the Houston area and the Galveston area, as it was naturally designed. The Trinity River goes up to Dallas. There are a bunch of them, and it's, if you follow the drainage patterns, which I looked at this morning, they all are designed to drain toward the Gulf, in the direction of Houston and the southeast part of the state. So 3-day rainfall record. It's still raining. The hurricane left land, went back out to the Gulf, and is now coming back. And what Houston's getting is essentially the north and northwestern quadrant of the storm, with the winds basically from the east to the west, or basically the northeast to the southwest. And it's just piling more and more rain on an area that obviously cannot accept it. Now, I said yesterday there are meteorological reasons for this. And what I meant by that is that this would be happening whether there was climate change caused by man going on or not. Now, one of the things I said yesterday turns out to be erroneous, and I will proudly and happily admit that my source for it was the drive-by media. I happened to be doing prep, getting ready for the program yesterday. I was cramming on Sunday. And I ran into a number of stories in the drive-bys that explained the strength, the late strengthening of Hurricane Harvey was because of the elevated sea surface temperatures, the Gulf of Mexico, that they are 2 to 3 degrees above normal. And it turns out that that's irrelevant. I have a chart here that has been prepared by Dr. Roy Spencer at his website, drroyspencer.com. And it charts Texas major hurricane landfalls and western Gulf of Mexico sea surface temperatures. And what it shows is that major hurricanes have formed regardless what the sea surface temperature is in the Gulf of Mexico. The best way to say it is that hurricanes have no preference for whether sea surface temperatures are above or below normal. What Dr. Spencer has done here is charted the sea surface temperature from 1870 to the present, as best the records have, and then charted all of the hurricanes, major hurricane landfalls in the western Gulf of Mexico, and contrast that with sea surface temperature. And you see hurricanes where sea surface temperature is below normal. You see, we're talking major hurricane landfalls, not just tropical storms. And you see major hurricane formation when sea surface temperatures are above normal. So this chart and this data would tend to indicate that the sea surface temperatures are irrelevant to either the formation of a hurricane or the strength of a hurricane. Yet, in the drive-by media, and I guess throughout mainstream meteorology, sea surface temperatures are being said to be the primary culprit. What is known here is this is a record rainfall because this hurricane isn't moving. And there are meteorological reasons why the hurricane isn't moving. There are two high-pressure areas, one to the west of it, one to the east of it, that have it boxed in. It just can't go anywhere. And until one of those high-pressure area dissipates or moves on, the hurricane is going to remain where it is. Now, eventually that's expected to happen, and the hurricane is going to become a tropical depression and a post-tropical depression, and it's going to make tracks from where it is currently. Let's just call it over Houston for lack of better. That's the easiest way to describe where it is now. And the track has it running straight northeast. That means the high-pressure area that is to the east is going to move away or dissipate or what have you. But by the time that happens, this thing is going to become a post-tropical storm. It's still going to have a lot of rainfall. Where does the rainfall come from? This is another thing that people are asking. And the answers to these questions, I think, are important because everything in our country has been politicized. We cannot avoid that. Everything has been politicized. Sports is now politicized. The weather is politicized. Climate is politicized. Rainfall is politicized. Now, it's obvious who's done this. It's the American left. It's the Democrat Party, the media, because politics is their lifeblood. It's the source of their power. It is where they derive their reason for existence, energy, and all of that. And so they have literally politicized everything as a way of demonizing their opponents as well. So we have to deal with it according to that basis. Wish we didn't. Wish we could deal with this as strictly a meteorological occurrence. We can't, because they're lying to people about what's causing this. They're lying to people about why this is happening. Where does the water come from? Where does all of this rain come from? People have logical questions. Why this much rain over Houston? Why don't we get this kind of rain in a thunderstorm, say, over Missouri? Why don't we get this kind of rain in thunderstorms over South? We would if the systems were stationary and if the circumstances were such that they kept being fueled, which is what's happening here. Hurricane Harvey isn't moving appreciably, and the things that require it to stay strong are abundantly present. So it is, if it ran on gasoline, it's constantly at the station, and the pump is connected, and gasoline is being pumped into it. That's exactly how you need to look at this. What fuels the rain? What makes clouds? What makes clouds condense and fall as rain? Meteorological answers for this. We're back to sea surface temperatures. They happen to be 2 degrees above normal. That means the heat above the water is above normal. And what does heat do? It rises. You couple that with a low pressure area, that is the hurricane, sucking even more of that heat up than nature would normally take it via evaporation. And it just sucks it up and sucks it up and sucks it up and sucks up some water from the Gulf that as it evaporates, and eventually the cloud tops condense, and that's how you get rain, which is distilled water. Sea water as rain is perfectly drinkable. It's essentially distilled for all intents and purposes, and that's why this is happening. It doesn't have anything to do with man-made climate change that anybody can prove or establish. It has to do with specific meteorological circumstances. A large tropical cyclone, which is what official weather people call a hurricane. They call it a cyclone. And it's circulating. And as it circulates, it's sucking moisture off of the Gulf of Mexico over a large area. And it has stalled. And so while it continues its circulation, it continues to suck moisture from both the waters of the Gulf and the air just above it. All of that rises, gets to altitudes where clouds are formed. The clouds become heavy. The condensation becomes rain. Rainfall then is concentrated in the one spot the hurricane is because it isn't moving. If the hurricane were moving at 5 miles an hour or 10 miles an hour, we would not be setting rainfall records. Now, the amount of water on Earth, in the air is constant. It just changes its location, its formation. Water exists as water vapor. It exists as seawater. It exists as rivers. It exists as tap water. But the amount of water on our planet is constant. We don't make new water. We don't lose water. We lose water in certain places. We have droughts. There are meteorological reasons for this that people can't explain. We can't predict it. We are just victims of it. It's Mother Nature, and we have no control over Mother Nature, and we never have had, as this is clearly indicating. The danger here is that there's no end in sight for it for the next 2 to 3 days. The rain continues, the hurricane basically stationary before it is forecast to move. But that's not till Wednesday or Thursday, when it's supposed to move out of the area. And then those 2 reservoirs, which are beginning to tip over now. Records are broken with meteorological data. It happens through a random combination of circumstances, and this stuff happens with or without climate change. Don't forget there have been we just recently passed the record rainfall. So there was a point in time in the past in the southeastern Texas area where this amount of rain had fallen. We had a hurricane in 1900 in Galveston that killed 6,000 to 12,000 people. This is only the second hurricane in 12 years, major hurricane to hit land in the U.S. So these are random circumstances. And it's unpredictable. And these are just the kind of things that happen you have to deal with. It doesn't help anybody. It doesn't comfort anybody. It doesn't make anybody more understanding and thus feel better about it. But it does help to know how these things happen and why, that there are reasons for all of this. There are scientific meteorological reasons that do not require the belief in myth, do not require any particular political orientation. But since everything is being politicized in America today, there is, I see it as a requirement to rebut as much of that as possible in an effort to preserve common sense, situational awareness, and reason. Let me take a brief time out, my friends, as we move on. The Trump hate is mounting. The Trump hate over Joe Arpaio and what the media is now simply lying about things that Trump is saying. I said they're not simply; they have been for a while, even ratcheting all of that up. So while this disaster is occurring 24/7 on TV, the left has not slacked off whatsoever in their effort to destroy Donald Trump and his presidency. Now, to the people in southeastern Texas, I doubt that matters very much right now. But it is happening, and it is ongoing, and we'll address that as well when we get back. And Air Force One just landed at Corpus Christi a couple of minutes ago. It's taxied in. They're waiting to roll the stairs up. People get off the plane. Corpus Christi was the close original site of landfall for Hurricane Harvey. But as you know, it has tracked east, and most of the rain bands have been far away. It's a sunny and bright day in Corpus Christi, sufficiently weather-wise for Air Force One to land.